Welcome to a Telltale Books video. I'm Greg.
And I'm Emily.
And we're here to talk about a great classic of literature, Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. We are Telltale Books, bringing you the best in literature, literary topics, and graphic design and bookmaking.
If you want to support us, you can find us on Etsy and Pango, where you can find gently used, rare, and even top quality used books.
And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and maybe even that bell to be notified when new videos go live.
Thanks for joining us.
Mrs. Dalloway is not the first novel that Woolf came out with. I think it's kind of midway in her career. About 1925, May 14th, 1925. And it was at a time when she and her husband had started Hogarth Press and published it themselves, the first edition.
Indie publishers.
And by the way, this is a facsimile version of the original cover jacket on a brand new vintage classics book. Just came out in like August.
Love it.
And I picked it up. So that's a brand new edition, but it's using the original cover design from the original Mrs. Dalloway. And to get to the quick chase, what is it about? The elevator pitch.
The aristocracy is shallow as hell, and then there's a guy with PTSD.
So then what did we think about it?
I actually really liked it.
Okay.
I wouldn't put it in top tail material.
No, I thought you said you would.
I mean, I thought about it, and I think it's a really well-written, very poetic story. It's just not something that is common for the average reader to enjoy.
Oh, it's definitely not for the average reader.
No, this is not an average reader kind of book. There's, you have to be able to follow a really fast-paced, multi-character story, and there are certain minds that cannot do that. So it's a really complex story. But I think because of how hard it is for so many people to comprehend, I'm kind of pulling back a little bit and saying almost top tail, but not quite.
See, and that's why I would put it as a top tail, because she did so many innovative things with it.
Okay, maybe I'm overthinking it.
It's something, yes, I did struggle with this book, and I think I really need to go back and read it a second time, because there's so much that's still kind of foggy about what I read. You know, I get to the end and there's a lot of it that I'm just not clear what was going on, and that's because of her style of writing. But her style of writing innovated something that I think if other writers did it, just not to the degree that she did, would create far more powerful characters.
Okay. I think then maybe I'm going to take it back. I am overthinking it then.
Okay.
I think I'm thinking it a bit more in context of what other people would enjoy. For my enjoyment, it would be a top tail. And maybe I just need to stick to that.
I think we should put it top tail, because
then let's put it top tail,
it shouldn't just be about what is easy for people. It should be about what is really great.
Yeah. And it's a deep thinking book.
Yeah.
It is very deep thinking.
So if you stick with us, we'll get into the details of who it's for and who should probably stay away from it. Not to say that if you hate Mrs. Dalloway, you're dumb, but I mean, it is for the more sophisticated reader.
It's a very niche. It's a very niche kind of book.
If all you ever read are like current bestseller type things, those are written a little more simply. And so if you then dive into Mrs. Dalloway, you're probably going to go, what the fuck? You know, it's not going to be...
hit you in the face with a 2x4
and you'll definitely need to read it 2 or 3 times before you'll get it. Mm-hmm. But because of that, because what she did is so incredible, and her writing style is, I mean, even if you don't get the book, even if you have no clue what's going on, you just read it aloud. It's beautiful.
You could read this like poetry writing. And still enjoy it.
It's like Ursula Le Guin or Ray Bradbury. It's that level of writing.
It was almost like Naked Lunch, but in the opposite way.
Yeah.
Where that was more grotesque and a little more jarring and meant to be edgy.
Yeah.
Hers is much more flowery and poetic, but dealing with similar subjects. A lot of
I
people,
wouldn't say similar subjects to Naked Lunch.
People at odds with their own relationships with themselves, with their sexuality, with their bodies, with their society. All similar subjects, just really portrayed in a different way. So you could read it like poetry and really enjoy it. Or you could try and look through the poetry and see the actual story.
But don't take what she's saying the wrong way. This is a very PG book.
Yeah, it's very mild in a lot of ways, but again, it's like almost the same but different from like something like Naked Lunch.
Mm-hmm. So a little more deep dive into the story.
All right. So the story is about Mrs. Dalloway preparing for her party. And her party consists of a lot of very important people. The Prime Minister is coming, a lot of the aristocracy. And in the midst of her day, as she's preparing for this party, people are flitting in and out of her life. And it's not just about her party. In the midst of her party, there's this very juxtaposed other situation going on of a man named Septimus and his wife. Septimus has shell shock from World War II. And he is going through a very awful psychosis where some of his dead friends are coming back to haunt him, essentially, in his own mind. So it kind of flip-flops between the characters who have interacted with Mrs. Dalloway and then this outside character who has not interacted with her at all, but by one of the doctors who comes to her party do their lives intersect.
Yeah. And then there's her situation with her old boyfriend Peter coming
Peter's
back.
Coming
she
back.
has a husband, and there's
she's
going
feeling
on there.
big feelings, and he's she's kind of like, I still care about him, but at the same time, like, he has terrible taste in women. What does that say about me? What does that say about him? Like, I don't have time to think about this right now. So there's just a lot of really complex relationships. Like, even at one point, you interact with her husband's POV. And this entire book is just POV. Like, this is a POV book. This kind of built the genre in and of itself of POV novels. So there is very little action. It is all just internal dialogue of people observing themselves, their lives, and overthinking a lot of things and making a lot of assumptions based off of their own feelings. What I think is most interesting about this book is that it kind of has similar themes to Mrs. Chatterley's Lover, where it's post-World War II, the aristocracy is kind of crumbling. The character of Peter himself is kind of, his aristocracy, as he knows it, is crumbling because he's getting divorced and interested in another married woman who is not an autocrat at all. And she's Indian on top of that. So he's got a cultural divide just as much as a marital one to hurdle to get, with this woman. And then there's Mrs. Dalloway, who's worrying about her party and who's coming and who's not. She's worried about the people she didn't invite. She's worried about the people who wanted to be invited and she forgot. She's got all this stuff going on, and she is really putting a lot of her own value into how successful this party is or isn't. And the flip-flop between the two feelings as she's dealing with aristocracy, because she realizes how valuable being a socialite in aristocracy is. And so her own inner conflicts about that, and the stupid little details, and all the stupid little, drama in everybody's life, and the importance of remembering it all, and trying to be a good hostess in the midst of all this, aristocratic turmoil. There was a lot going on. Her own husband is a politician in Parliament. So there's a lot of interactions there. A lot of it focuses, too, on romantic relationships specifically, and the turmoil of dealing with romantic relationships in different contexts. Like with Septimus, who has shell shock, he and his wife are at odds because his wife is grieving him before he's even gone. Because the man she knows and loves is basically not there and is a totally different person who's fearful and not himself and seeing things. And what does she do as a working Italian woman in England who barely knows the English language? So she's dealing with her own inner turmoil of, I loved him once and I have to wait until he dies, basically. and her feelings about that. We deal with Mrs. Dalloway's daughter, who is adopted, actually an Asian adopted young girl, and her just seeing how shallow the aristocracy is and how much she just wants to be her own person and by herself and would rather do her own thing than sit around dealing with all this bullshit. We have her tutor, nanny, who absolutely hates Mrs. Dalloway and everything she stands for and thinks all the aristocrats are going to hell. And says so to all of them. She's just not a good person, and she's very self-righteous and, a very self-righteous Christian who fully believes that all these aristocrats are just hellbound because of how shallow and awful they are, and they're not giving enough, and they're not good enough Christians. Most of them don't even go to church, that kind of thing. So you're dealing with that kind of person. Goodness, who else? The doctor who attends to Septimus. And to him, it's tragic, but he kind of treats it like it's just any other day.
Yeah.
That this guy is going through this. And, spoiler alert, Septimus ends up jumping out of a window to kill himself because he's so afraid he's going to get taken away from his wife because of how nuts he is. He ends up doing the ultimate harm and killing himself. Not that he was actually trying, he was just trying to escape the doctors and not get taken away. But in doing so, he killed himself.
And Dalloway's there.
Worried about the doctors talking about this guy who killed himself.
Well, and thinking how terrible it was that he chose to do that at her party.
Yeah. Like, she's only thinking in the context of herself and how what a morbid thing to bring up at my party. Like, very self-righteous, so out of touch. But that's the whole point of the story. The whole point of the story was to show how out of touch and full of themselves these aristocrats were. Versus people, or someone, like Septimus, who had an actual problem. And so, like, the only two sane people in this story are Septimus's wife, technically, and Dalloway's daughter. They're the only two normal people in this whole story who kind of have, like, this is all bullshit. This is all bullshit. Life is hard. Sometimes things go wrong. You either gotta stick it out and survive or walk the hell away from it and never look back. And that's the whole story. Like, nothing much happens, but a lot happens.
Yeah, to try to distill the synopsis down, it's about a day in the life of a bunch of 1920s snobby British aristocrats.
Yeah.
Going to a party.
And being assholes to each other.
End of story.
All day.
Well, and I mean, but...
Even Mr. Dalloway
the
admits...
basic story is just about preparing for that party. But within that, there's all these character actions. But within that, what she does, which authors normally don't do, is she has these multiple point of views where she's getting into the heads of every one of the characters.
Every character.
Okay. And so you're seeing their inner thoughts. And I think that's the brilliance of this book, is how it's I mean, think about any of our days. We go through the day, we go to work, drive through traffic, we come home, we make supper, sit down, watch TV. I mean, pretty boring stuff. But if you could get into our heads and all the crap that's going through our heads
all the
while we're doing all
the
this
hopes,
stuff.
The fears.
Random thoughts that pass through us, little things that irritate us during the day, big issues that we're struggling with in our lives that we're thinking about as we're doing this. What we actually do compared to what's inside of us are two completely different universes, and that's why I think this is a top tale, is that Virginia Woolf pulls those together into this story and shows a lot of the inner life of all the people, not just one point of view character, but all of these characters, shows how they interact in real life, all within the context of something that is really banal.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, too, is that the character... Now, Virginia Woolf had a lot of mental health issues. She ended up taking her own life. But one of the things I think is interesting is that the one with the richest inner life was the guy with shell shock. He was the one who was... A lot of his POV was... He's just discovering beauty in everything. And then it kind of gets cut off by suddenly having his dead comrade haunt him, essentially, and coming and talking to him and prophesying over his life, random things and all this stuff. And he's just like, no, stop. Life is beautiful. Everything is worthwhile. While everyone else is acting like everything is shit. But he's the one with the most positive and most rich inner life. He's the one who's thinking the most deeply outside of himself. He's not thinking about him and his circumstances. He's not trying to dwell in his PTSD or what he saw in the trenches. He's trying to see that the world is still a good place, and he constantly is looking at it that way.
And yet he's the one that exits through the window.
He's the one who takes unaliving as the route. But again, that was because his mind was so rich, it deceived him into thinking that he was just going to get dragged away and put away somewhere. And it was actually in his most lucid moment that it happens.
Yeah.
So... But everybody else's inner life is it's just a lot of anxiety and shallowness and a lot of, what does society think? You know, especially in the women, like you see a lot of women's issues during this time. Like, what does society think? What's considered proprietary? What isn't? What is, being a good mother or wife look like? And how do I portray that more, even though I have these feelings of my husband doesn't love me? That kind of thing. Or the husband is like, how do I show that I love my wife without having to say it in front of everyone?
Yeah.
Do I even feel it? Having those kind of internal dialogues. And a lot of comparison. Whereas Septimus is not. Yeah. He's not worrying about comparing himself.
No.
He is, and he's the most poetic character of them all. Like, he is very much a romantic in his POV. And it's really interesting to see that she chose to portray the mentally ill one as the most sane.
Yeah.
Of all of them.
Yeah.
Because he's aware. He's so aware of what's going on with himself. He just wishes he knew how to make it stop.
Because he doesn't have all the fake stuff around him.
Yes. And he's just a working class guy who got stuck in the trenches and came back alive when the rest of his buddies didn't. And his wife's an immigrant from Italy, just trying to make ends meet because he can't work now. He's having hallucinations all the time. He's basically schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And so she's, barely knows the language and is just making hats to help them live while he's dealing with this and going through the motions of that, of what is being a good wife to someone who's basically not your husband anymore.
Yeah.
They're the most substantial characters, but he's the one with the most rich inner life. And I think that's really interesting.
Now, like I say, for the average reader approaching, for any reader approaching this, you have that very simple, basic synopsis of this story, but it's very deceptive because what's actually going on is a lot deeper and a lot more combination of interior and exterior. This is a very heavy character book. So if you don't like character stories, this isn't for you.
No.
But you need to. This is character to the nth degree. This is getting into people's heads. And like I said, not just one point of view inside their head, but inside the heads of all the characters. And it kind of bounces around like that. And that's where it becomes difficult for the reader.
9 characters that you follow in this one. And they bounce around POV style.
So I was almost thinking...
And there's no chapters, by the way.
No, it's one chapter.
Just one giant
there are paragraphs.
Kept writing.
And there are quotation marks.
Yeah, but there are no chapters, so it bounces. Like, you'll be in one paragraph talking to Septimus, the next thing you're Dalloway.
Yeah,
and there's very little to give you warning.
Point of view shifts without a lot of warning. And I was also losing track because, and as a reader, if you're not used to this kind of writing, it's a little difficult to find your way through it. Where I was losing track is that there were times where she was having the characters talk, where she was getting into the characters' pasts. And it wasn't immediately obvious.
No.
And I'm going, what the heck? Is this present day? Is this past? Is this a flashback? What's going on? And it was a little hard to keep track of. I think this is a book that you really have to go back and read it a second time to get all that, because the first time you're going to find yourself getting a little lost, and having a hard time understanding exactly what's going on, because this is what's called stream of consciousness writing. I think Virginia Woolf was the first one to do this. On the Road by Jack Kerouac is another very famous stream of consciousness book, where they just start writing and they just keep going and they write down everything as it hits in their head. I'd hate to be an editor on a book like that.
That would get real dicey.
Well, I mean, to try and preserve it and still make it not all jumbled and choppy would be a difficult job for an editor. But, well, I don't know if that happened with this. Maybe she did just sit down and flow it all out and never edited it.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
It's this good. If she's that great of a writer.
Wouldn't be surprised, honestly.
So, there's lots of things to like about this book. There's lots of things to dig deeper into it. It's working on multiple levels. Because I didn't really pick up a lot on the social commentary aspect that you did. I saw it more as a commentary that we all have how we act every day, but we all have this inner life that's going on that other people don't see. And that she was contrasting those two sides. And I think that's brilliant, because it really illuminates these characters better than any other book possibly could.
And there's even, again, there's the greater social to also consider, like I said before, where it's the deterioration of the aristocracy. And they're all just going through the motions of their own daily lives. Maybe feeling it a little, but not really realizing fully to what extent this is happening. And how obsolete they're becoming, and how obsolete these social interactions are becoming.
Well, I think we see that today, where we have this class that just keeps getting richer and pulling further away from the rest of us.
And
they're so out of
touch.
They make these just absolutely insane comments, but it's only insane because they're so out of touch with what real people deal with.
Absolutely.
And
it's...
I can't see a good ending to that situation.
And in this story, there really isn't either. Like, there isn't much of an aristocracy anymore. There's nobility, and that's about it. The aristocracy, anybody could be part of it.
I mean, even in the 1920s, a lot of what was in Great Gatsby, too, those people were socialites because they became rich by taking advantage of the Industrial Revolution.
Anybody could be part of the aristocracy. There wasn't a certain birthright to it anymore.
Right.
And it deteriorated. And so the dynamic entirely shifted and changed, that there was a different type of person who could be in power now.
But I think this does point out that the people who feel like they need to join that upper level aristocracy just because they're rich or because it's going to give them power or something, how empty and vacuous that pursuit in life is.
One of the things I noticed in this is how much their stuff owned them. Like their everyday items and that sort of thing, what they bought, what kind of places, food they, restaurants they went to and food they consumed. So much of that owned them instead of them owning it, which I thought was an interesting dynamic to bring up, because that does happen. The wealthier you become, the more your stuff owns you. You accumulate a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff to take care of. There's a lot of stuff to fix. There's a lot of stuff to keep up. There's a lot of cleaning that goes on with it. And so you kind of see that in here. And yes, they have staff, but it's still the head of the household, who was the female. It's still her job to have the list of all the things that need taken care of. And on top of that, it's still her job to accept visitors. And on top of that, it's still her job to be mom. And on top of that, it's still her job to really keep her relationships in checks and balances and recognize her place as a female. So one of the things Greg had actually asked me before we had done this was, do I feel this is actually a feminist work as people claim? Not really, but also kind of. Because it's telling the truth about women's place in society and their plights in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So it's being honest about women and the struggles and the things that they were expected to uphold, but not in a way that actually critiqued it per se.
Right.
At least not blatantly.
I mean, you could take any book where a woman author writes from her experiences about women characters, point of view of women characters, and say that's feminist. Yeah, it kind of is, but it's not about the political movement of feminism.
Yes.
And that's where I think even though Virginia Woolf was very definitely a part of what existed back then for a feminist movement, I don't think she wrote a feminist novel here. She wrote something different from that.
Yeah.
She was writing about something else.
Yeah. And I think,
experience.
she told the truth. She told the truth about what women dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I thought was interesting, too, is that there is a borderline homoerotic relationship she has with her best friend. I thought that was pretty progressive and interesting.
Yes, it was. But
it's not something you talked about.
She kind of...
But it kind of,
She kind of touches on it, but doesn't really go there. And we know in her life that she did.
Yeah.
So
it was kind of refreshing to see that in a work that was so old. That's old.
Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting, I thought. So maybe that's kind of another where it's like, okay, well, maybe it is a little feminist because it does touch on that a little bit and make it seem normal. It made it seem normal that she would have this kind of relationship with her best friend before she got married, when she was young.
Mm-hmm.
They had a fling and it was great. One beautiful summer together. But yeah, so there's nothing super blatant about it being feminist. And I think, too, when we start saying books written by feminists are innately feminist, we start kind of pulling anybody who's a Christian who writes music automatically is making Christian music. That's not true.
No.
There are plenty of people who identify of certain religions and their music or their work or their artistry is not blatantly in regard to that label.
And what does that make H.P. Lovecraft?
Yeah. So, I think, I don't know what to think about that. Anyway, so I think this is just one of those occasions where, because we have a feminist, we want to say the work itself is feminist. That's not, I feel, the case in this book. However, I do think it does tell the truth about what women experienced in society, and I think that's important. And telling the truth about women and what they experience in society gives us a great baseline for where we've been and where we're going to proceed as a culture.
Okay.
So,
but what you're saying there almost makes it sound like this is a woman's book. I don't
really
feel
not.
It was that either.
No, it just tells the truth about women.
There was plenty about the men that were in the situation,
too,
too, and getting in their point of view.
Yes, and also seeing how they viewed women.
Yeah.
Like, in this book, it almost sounds like the guys don't really like women that much. Like, they like them in that they like having families and having someone to take care of the household. And they like someone who helps organize these little dinner parties and things that they don't have time for. But outside of that, the only person who liked his wife was Septimus and was actually in love with her. Mm-hmm. Everyone else was just going through the motions of, well, getting married as an aristocrat is what you do.
Yeah.
That's just what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have wives.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have more than one because the first few didn't work out, like Peter.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of critique in society to this day. Do men actually like women outside of what women can do for them? It brings up an interesting point. In this book, there's one guy, but he's insane. Is he reliable? Who knows?
Yeah.
So it does bring up a little bit of that critique as well in society. And I think, but still, I wouldn't call this a feminist book. I think it's just posing the questions to make you think about it.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I want to get across is that, don't think that this book is necessarily not for you because it's this or it's that. Mm-hmm. It's really about people. It's about human people, human situations, what people think inside, how they react outside, and it's about these characters. And I mean, yeah, for me, preferring science fiction, there's no aliens, no robots, no time warps. What a boring book. But if you're not that locked into genre, this book is an excellent story that I think anybody can sit and read. It's really for anybody as long as they are okay with doing some work.
Yeah.
Because it isn't an easy book.
No. And if you're into historical fiction, it has all those same great themes that historical fictions have. It has the drama. It's just all internal. It has, the fashion even. But again, it's the perception of people internally. It has the social relationships and romantic relationships. But again, all from a perspective of internal. So this is kind of a book for the sad emo girlies who like historical fiction. I loved it. I really did enjoy this book. I have a brain that did not have issues like switching through the POVs very much. I am ADHD, but I happen to have the ADHD that causes me to hyperfocus. So I really just railed through this book and did a really great job with it. And it's also great in audiobook. I listened to it simultaneously in audiobook, and it was fantastic.
Something I'm interested in that occurred to me as I was talking, I mentioned The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to compare and contrast the two. Because they both... I haven't read The Great Gatsby yet, so I don't know a lot about it, but I've heard that it ends with a big party, right? This is kind of like... This is a little more compact in that it's only one day. Great Gatsby has a bigger timeline in the story. But they're both that 1920s wealthy socialite kind of life.
Big party lifestyle. People. Yeah. No, that would be actually a really great critique. We got to get you into Gatsby. That's a good book.
I've got a copy. I've got a really nice copy by Beehive Books. It's beautiful.
And this
well illustrated.
This story too would be, if you're a Gatsby girly, you would probably enjoy this one too. Not as much, there's not as much shift between scenes. Like, you're not in a lot of multiple places, per se. A lot of it is very focused on the Dalloways and their household. And then internal POVs while people are walking and stuff. Like, there's not a lot of that. So, there's not a lot of scene opulence like there can be in Gatsby. But, if you're a Gatsby girly, you'd probably really enjoy this. Or if you just like historical fiction. There are a lot of men who find this kind of thing interesting as well. I just say the girlies because I know a lot of women who would really enjoy this book.
Okay, but I read
anybody who likes historical fiction, this is a good one.
It's not an easy book. It's a difficult book, but I thought it was an excellent book. And I don't think it's anything that men should shy away from just because a woman wrote it or it's called Mrs. Dalloway. That doesn't make it a feminine book. It's definitely a book for anybody that's interested in that kind of historical, social criticism kind of story.
And if you're a people watcher who always wonders, what is that person thinking? This book gives it to you. And it gives it all to you. So it's a great book.
It is. And I've always been curious about Virginia Woolf's writing. One that a lot of science fiction books about the history of science fiction often mention. Not that it's actually science fiction, but that it's kind of like borderline is To the Lighthouse. Haven't read it, but because of that, recommendation from science fiction sources, I've always wanted to.
Yeah, and this is my first introduction to Virginia Woolf. I've been wanting to delve into her work for a while and just never got around to it, never prioritized it, because I kind of fell out of enjoying historical fiction. I enjoyed it when I was younger, but then I got more into like nonfiction and science fiction and fantasy. And so I kind of kept going in that direction. So now coming back to it, I'm realizing how much I love historical fiction, and I'm really enjoying Virginia Woolf from this first experience. So it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So highly recommended.
It's
a top tail.
Top tail.
Ignore what she said earlier.
Yeah, ignore me. I was overthinking myself. It's good. It's really good. So, anything else?
I think we talked it to death.
Yeah. There's so much to talk about because there's so many characters.
Get a
so
copy,
much going
like
on.
I say, this is currently, it's a brand new book, uses the original cover design of the first edition of the book, but it is a brand new book being published by Vintage Classics and isn't very expensive.
This is not sponsored. We just like found it and thought it was pretty.
$20. I got it. I bought mine through bookshop.org because then a certain amount of money goes to my choice bookstore, Blackheart Books in Manitowoc. And instead of going to Amazon, I've been trying to buy stuff through there. This isn't the kind of book that Blackheart Books would stock because they're a horror thriller store.
Yep.
And this isn't horror or thriller.
But we still like to support our indie bookstores, no matter what genre we buy.
Yeah, I can buy all my, classics and science fiction and stuff and still support a local bookstore through it. So it's a great
shameless
thing.
plug for bookshop.
And price-wise, they've been able to beat Amazon on some things.
Yeah, so don't support the billionaires.
Yeah.
Support the little guys. They deserve it. They're the ones who give a shit about you. So
go read Mrs. Dalloway. Come back and watch more videos. We will have more Virginia Woolf in the future. Not sure when, but we'll get to it.
Yep.
And all the other things we do. Stephen King, Arthur Clarke. I'm going through Francis Stevens.
H.P. Lovecraft.
Edgar Allan Poe. Yes, Philip K. Dick. H.G. Wells.
We have a little bit of everything sprinkled in.
So come on back and watch it all.
Yep. And if you want to continue to support us, feel free to check out our Pango and Etsy shops where we're selling vintage and antique collectibles over on our Etsy, as well as gently used contemporary works from our own personal collections on Pango, including a bunch of on-CD audiobooks. So go ahead and check those out.
Shout out, we've got an awesome library binding copy of Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is in our Etsy store for sale right now. If you've watched the recent movie and loved it, gotta read the book.
Yeah,
you can buy
phenomenal.
A copy, reasonably priced, nice condition.
Yeah, so go ahead and check that out. Thanks for
Boris
joining us.
Vallejo cover illustration.
Yeah, really cool stuff. We have some really a lot of great things on there that are collectibles that we're really proud of having found to give back to you. So, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.